way back in the first Mega Man X game, Zero had a very different design compared to what we're used to seeing today. In fact, if we don't count things like crossovers, remakes, or flashbacks, this design is incredibly elusive. Heck, it didn't even make it into Dive. Maybe that's why, as more time passes, the more I actually start to prefer this design to the others. Sometimes less really is more. This video was originally going to be just a coverage of the design and why it's so cool, but as I was writing the script for this, some new information was unearthed by one of the planners behind Mega Man X2. So before we get to the design itself, I have to share this new backstory. And yes, it's serious this time. This is actual new information. So hello everyone, ColeManX here. Let's get into it. Before the events of the first Mega Man X game, Sigma, the then current leader of the Maverick Hunters, went to personally deal with the Red Maverick that wiped out Garma's unit. Sigma may have been the most capable Reploid among the Maverick Hunters, but even he could not stand up to this red demon. However, when all hope seemed lost for Sigma, an opportunity presented itself. And Sigma finished the fight. Severely damaged, Sigma made his way out of the warehouse housing the defeated Maverick, and called for the body to be recovered and brought to Dr. Kane, the founder of the Hunters, as well as the one who originally produced Reploids. Okay, this was the part we already knew thanks to Mega Man X4's flashback scene near the end of Zero's campaign. But this is where the new, old information comes in. According to one of the planners behind Mega Man X2, when Zero's body was taken to Dr. Kane, he was actually unable to repair it, likely because, like X, Zero was just too advanced for Kane's understanding. As a result, Zero's damaged body was put into containment, and Kane took the control chip that housed Zero's mind and put it into a copy body that he created. So, the Zero we see all throughout X1 is just a copy body housing Zero's mind and personality. The events of X1 happen and Zero dies. While the copy body was completely destroyed, the control chip housing Zero's mind was somehow salvaged by X and returned to Dr. Kane. When the X-Hunters broke into Maverick Hunter HQ to steal Zero's body, they actually stole his original body that had been inactive and sealed away since Zero's battle with Sigma. And so, Serges was able to repair and upgrade the original body of Zero that Wily built all those years ago. And with that, we're brought back in line with the story as it's presented in-game. Now, take this story with a grain of salt. While this does come directly from one of the planners of X2, they also readily admit that this was to the best of their recollection. 1994 was a long time ago, so it's understandable. There was also another tale that fake Zero was in production before Zero's body was stolen, but another planner for X2 seems to agree with me that fake Zero was made from the broken teleport capsule, so there you go. It's canon now. It's funny, while we don't directly learn this during X1, the plot point of Zero being in a copy body was later recycled and made into an important story beat many years later. Again, it's like poetry. They rhyme. Wow, what a tale. I couldn't believe that a story like this had been hidden from us for 30 years. I wonder how many more stories like this exist behind the curtain. Even if you don't like it as much as the story we're used to, it's still fascinating that they could have had this in the books for so long. But now it's time to look at Zero himself. When X found himself in over his head against Vile, this was the Zero that showed up and saved the day in one of the most memorable and awesome character introductions of all time. The music, Zero destroying Vile's ride armor to save X, it's just an amazing scene. X10 is such a fun design. It's straight to the point, you know? Speaking of points, what better place to start than the helmet? Look at those things. At first glance, they really don't seem to scream good guy, but it's hard to imagine Zero without this bit of edge to his design. When we see this design in the X4 flashback scene, the horns look even more delightfully devilish. While this may have been a stylistic choice, it really helps sell the idea of this guy being a cold-blooded killer. One really fun thing about the helmet is that, in the concept art, we can see that it had a large opening in the bottom that allowed Zero's hair to spill out. That's quite a bit different from the more mechanical look the opening would later take. Zero's body almost looks like it could be my cousin. His signature Z-titties are there, but instead of a grill we see in later interpretations, the gold is on his midsection. The whole thing kinda looks like a funny face, and I just can't get enough of it. It takes quite the roid to wear something like that and still make it look cool. This design also shows off his shoulder balls rather than covering them with extra armor. We also see that the Z on his shoulder is completely purple instead of purple and gold. Most of the time anyway. Oh, X4 and your minor coloring mistakes. Some may say that the lack of a gold necklace makes the design a bit plain, but I think it looks more sleek and less busy. Speaking of less busy, look at those legs. Aside from the toe attackers and the kneecaps, these are about as plain as they come. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just those little bits of white are enough to completely separate the design from X's, and it just fits the rest of the look really well. I've seen people try to argue that his arms don't change at all between designs, but if we look at the wrist guards, they're nice and flat rather than the more dangerous ones we see in X2 and onward. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Buster Breakdown. The original Z-Buster is one of the more simple designs in the X series, while also being one of the most recognized since it has multiple users. With two cannons on one side and two, lights on the other, this Buster makes a really unique silhouette. I think my favorite part of the design is the big red button on the side. There's just something about that cool black outline and the two-layered red piece that just really does it for me. One really cool aspect of this Buster is the color. Zero's Z-Buster is almost always depicted as a silver color rather than the white color that X sports when he takes on the Buster. I like to believe that if X gets the Buster from Dr. Light, it's the white one, but if he gets it from Zero, it's the silver one. I just think that's cool. But that all went out the window when this design was brought back in Maverick Hunter X, and it was made white across the board. And that really sucks since this game makes the charge shot different if you get the Buster from Zero. Oh well. This Buster design was also the inspiration for the military Buster seen in Rockman X Dive, as well as this unused Buster in the game's files. Another thing worth noting is that this design has no backpack for his saber, since this iteration of Zero never used a saber. Well, that's not entirely true. In the Archie Comics Mega Man series, there's a scene where Zero uses Sigma's saber, alluding to him using one in the future. We also see this Zero use a yellow saber in the 32-bit opening for X3 where, for no reason at all, Zero changes to his X1 look after killing Vile. I don't have to understand why to think it's super cool, it just is. If X and Sigma can change designs whenever they want in that cutscene, why wouldn't Zero be able to? But a saber isn't the melee weapon that X10 is known for using. No. This Zero likes to channel his inner Mike Hagar and use his trusty pipe. For something that happened so quick in the original context, the idea of X10 using a pipe as a weapon has really caught on, and it's even been recently referenced in Teppen. Personally, I think it's great. It really sells that sadistic nature that a Maverick should show. Bring back the Z pipe. One thing I've noticed but never seen discussed is exactly where Sigma fought Zero. It happens in a warehouse where Zero's waiting all alone. Sigma goes through a set of doors, and the battle begins. Seems pretty familiar, right? Intentional or not, this really helps sell the idea that Zero was Wily's final Robot Master. I'm really hopeful that we get a Kotobukiya kit of this Zero sooner than later. Not only is it a great design, I also just want to use my sense and skill to see Zero slowly upgrading to his later design, as if he's getting the capsules for himself. Heck, I wish the X1 as Zero ROM hack would update to include the design changes when you get capsules. Is anyone out there working on something like that? I almost forgot to mention, the X1 design was seen again in a surprising place. In the endgame of X5, the Zero Virus design looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? Such a nice touch. Another thing I forgot to mention was that in the final fight in the Vile mode of Maverick Hunter X, Zero uses a very special attack. The Toe Attacker. The Toe Attacker is real! I can't believe I almost forgot to mention that. And that does it for the X1 Zero design. Not only did we get to talk about just how fun the design is, but we also got to talk about some newly shared story info for Zero. And since you made it all the way to the end, here's one last bit of trivia. In Zero's ending in Mega Man X5, we see a flashback of Zero vs. Sigma. While it is a very cool art piece, it has a couple mistakes. Can you spot them? Right here. These lines aren't supposed to be here until Zero's later design. It's funny too, because in the rough draft of this piece, they got it right. Oh well. Oh, and Commander Sigma shouldn't have the spikes. Thanks for watching. And an extra big thank you to SilBee for helping to clean up the script, and to Spring Queen for the amazing art. And, as always, thank you to our channel members, SilBee, Darupi, Asterisk, Dornor, Spring Queen, Masterman, Fusion Catalyst, Thy Gameplaya, AI Metalloid X, and the rest of our supporters. I really want to see the X10 design come back, even if it's just as a skin for the next game. Anyway, more editorials are in the works, so be on the lookout for those. See you then.